I was lying on the cold kitchen floor, clutching my side, the sharp pain pulsing with every breath. Blood wasn't visible, but something inside me knew this wasn't just a bruise. Just days before Mom's birthday, and I could barely move. The world around me was spinning, voices distant, footsteps fading, until a shadow fell over me. My brother's girlfriend knelt down, her eyes fierce but calm. She leaned in and whispered, "Hey, boss." And in that single moment, everything I thought I knew about my family shattered. My name is Rena. I've always been the quiet one, the observer in the background, the girl who never made waves. In our house, silence wasn't just golden, it was survival. Especially around my dad. He wasn't the type to throw punches in public. But his anger had a shape, a sound, a rhythm, slamming cabinets, slurred accusations, apologies laced with guilt, and then silence again like nothing ever happened. My mom? She was present but fading, always trying to keep the peace, always shrinking so no one else would get hurt. And my brother, Jonah, we used to be close. He'd sneak candy into my room when I cried myself to sleep. But as we got older, something in him closed off.
He stopped looking at me. Maybe it was easier that way.
Mom's birthday was coming up, and the house was pretending to be happy. Fake laughter. Forced dinners. My dad acting like he hadn't just screamed at me for leaving the bathroom light on the night before. That's when Jonah brought her over. Her name was Lexi. She had this soft way of speaking, like she didn't want to scare the truth away. She watched everything. Not nosy, more like aware. Like she'd been through enough to recognize pain even when it wore a smile. She complimented my drawings. Noticed the way I flinched when Dad's voice rose. Asked if I wanted to help her set the table instead of letting me clean in silence. It was small stuff, but it mattered. It mattered because someone finally saw me. I always felt invisible until I wasn't. The thing about living with someone like my dad is you get used to walking on uneven ground. Even when it's quiet, you're bracing for the next explosion. Every footstep from the hallway could mean a storm is coming. And lately, that storm had stopped knocking. It started small like it always does. A cup left in the sink. A pair of shoes by the door. But his reactions weren't small anymore. One night I forgot to take the trash out, and he slammed the garbage can so hard into the floor that the lid cracked. "You live like a guest here, Rena," he snarled. "But this isn't a hotel." Mom stood behind him, quiet, fingers twisting the hem of her apron. She didn't look at me. She never did when it got like that. Jonah didn't even hear it. He was in the living room with Lexi, playing some video game, laughing. I remember standing there with my ears ringing from the yelling, watching them from the doorway, like I was peering in on a world I didn't belong to anymore. I used to be close to Jonah. He was the only person who understood what it was like to grow up in our house. We used to hide under the covers during fights and pass notes back and forth pretending we were spies, documenting the madness. But now, I couldn't tell if he was ignoring it or just tired of carrying it. Lexi was different, though. She didn't just exist in the space. She filled it with this quiet kind of warmth. She asked me things no one else did. "Want to come outside with me? Did you eat already? Do you draw every day?" Like she wasn't asking out of politeness, but because she actually wanted to know. At first, I brushed it off. I thought maybe she was just naturally friendly. But it didn't take long to realize. Lexi noticed things. One night, she caught me jumping at the sound of the hallway door slamming. I tried to laugh it off, but she didn't smile. Just tilted her head and said, "You okay?" I nodded too quickly. "Does this happen a lot?" She added, quieter. I froze. No one ever asked me that before.
Not like that.
Not with eyes that didn't look away.
I didn't say yes.
I didn't have to. She looked at me like she already knew. After that, things shifted. I started to feel seen. But the more Lexi noticed, the more my dad did too. I caught him watching her during dinner, tight-lipped, calculating. He didn't like her asking questions. He especially didn't like that she kept pulling me into conversations, that she'd offer to help me clean or cook. He started snapping at me for little things again, but now he made sure it was when no one else was around. And Jonah? He didn't seem to notice the tension brewing beneath the surface. If anything, he looked relieved someone else was there to keep the peace. That made it worse, somehow. He should have known. He did know once. A few days before Mom's birthday, things hit a new low. I was in the hallway upstairs when I tripped on a pile of laundry my dad had angrily kicked aside earlier. I caught myself against the wall, but my ribs hit the corner hard. It knocked the wind out of me. I slid down to the floor, dizzy. That's when Lexi appeared. She rushed over and crouched down. All that calm she carried suddenly sharpened with worry. "Did you fall?" she asked. I tried to brush it off, but when I shifted, I couldn't hide the wince. She looked at me, really looked. "Lift your shirt," she said softly. "Let me see." I hesitated. She didn't push, just waited. Finally, I lifted it an inch, just enough for her to see the edge of the bruise. The colors were already blooming across my ribs, purple, red, yellow-green at the edges. Her face changed.
She didn't gasp.
Didn't flinch. She just met my eyes and said, "You don't have to say anything. I believe you." That sentence broke something open in me. Not in a painful way, but in the kind of way that makes you realize how long you've been holding your breath. Then she said, very quietly, "You're not alone, okay? I'm here." I nodded, even though I didn't understand what she meant at the time. Because I thought she was just being kind. I didn't know, not yet, that Lexi had a reason for being here beyond Jonah. She wasn't just visiting for cake and awkward family dinners. She was watching everything, listening, and what she was about to do next would change all of our lives. It was 3 days before Mom's birthday. I remember because I'd spent the afternoon decorating a small cake in the kitchen, something simple, just for her. I used to do it every year, even though no one asked, even though no one ever really said thank you. Dad came home in a mood. I could tell from the moment the front door slammed, hard enough to rattle the coat hooks.
His face was red.
Jaw tight. He muttered something about work, how no one respects him, how he's the only one holding this family together. I kept my head down, hoping he'd pass right through the kitchen. But then he saw the cake. "What's this?" he barked, coming closer. "It's for Mom's birthday," I said quietly. "I just thought." "You thought what?" he snapped. "That you'd show me up? That I don't do enough for her." I blinked, confused. "No, I just..." "Don't lie to me." He grabbed the cake tin and hurled it across the room. It hit the fridge with a dull, wet smack. Pink frosting slid down the door like a slow, melting bruise. I should have stayed quiet. I should have walked away. But something in me, maybe all the bottled-up years, snapped. "You didn't have to do that." I shouted, louder than I meant to. "She deserves something nice." That was it. He turned, eyes wild, and before I could move, he shoved me hard. I stumbled back, hit the counter, and collapsed onto the tiled floor. My ribs lit up in pain. My head cracked the lower cabinet on the way down. The last thing I heard before everything went dim was Mom gasping. But she didn't move. She never did. I don't know how long I was out. Maybe a minute. Maybe more. When I came to, it was quiet. The fluorescent kitchen light buzzed above me like a warning. My vision was blurry, breath shallow. Then footsteps. Soft ones. A hand brushed my forehead. I blinked until her face came into focus. Lexi. She had a dish towel in one hand, her phone in the other, eyes fierce and wet. I tried to sit up, but the pain crushed me back down. "Don't move," she whispered. "I've got you." I could barely speak. Where's Jonah?" Her jaw clenched.
"He left."
He didn't see it.
She paused.
But I did. She pressed the towel gently against the back of my head and leaned closer. Her voice was calm, focused. "Not scared. Not anymore. You don't have to pretend anymore, Rena," she said. "I've been waiting, watching, documenting everything." I stared at her, breath catching. "Why?" She hesitated, just for a second. Then she smiled, not softly, but like someone who just found the final puzzle piece. "Because I know what it's like," she said. "I lived it too. But I got out." Then she looked at me, eyes locked on mine, and said, "Hey, boss, it's your turn now." Something shifted in me at that moment. Like I'd been holding onto a ledge my whole life, and someone finally reached down to pull me up. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was about to take control. The silence after Lexi's words stretched between us like a thread, tense, trembling, waiting to snap. "Boss," I echoed, barely above a whisper.
My whole body ached.
My heart pounded harder than the pain in my ribs. "What does that mean?" Lexi leaned back a little. She wasn't panicking, wasn't calling for help, just watching me, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "It means I'm not here by accident," she said softly. "And neither are you." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small notebook. I recognized it. She always carried it. I'd seen her jotting down lists and random notes in it during dinner, during TV nights. I never thought anything of it. But now she flipped it open, revealing pages, rows of tidy handwriting. Names.
Dates.
Observations. "I'm in my final year of training to become a family advocate," she said. "I work with a volunteer agency, part of a support network for young adults coming out of trauma, especially those living in active abuse environments." I stared at her, stunned. "You're like a social worker?" She nodded. "Technically not licensed yet, but we're paired with real cases through connections. I heard about your family 2 months ago through a mutual support circle. Someone remembered Jonah from college. The way he talked about your dad at a party once, how he used to laugh it off. So you targeted my brother?" I asked, not accusing, just confused. Lexi's eyes softened. "I didn't target anyone. I met Jonah by coincidence. But once I got close, I started seeing signs.
In you.
In your mom. In how quiet the whole house is when your dad enters the room." "So you were spying?" "No," she said firmly. "I was waiting, watching, hoping I was wrong. But I needed proof, something to bring to my supervisor if it ever came to that. I couldn't force you to speak, Rena. I had to wait until you were ready." She paused. Her eyes searched mine. "You were ready today." The words felt like a weight being lifted, terrifying and freeing all at once. Lexi continued, her voice gentle now. "I don't want to make a call behind your back. I'm not here to take over your story. That's why I called you boss. Because from this point forward, you decide what happens next." I looked at her, truly looked at her. The girl I thought was just another of Jonah's girlfriends, kind but distant, was sitting on the floor with me, her notebook filled with the quiet truths I thought no one could ever see. "What happens if I say yes?" I asked. Lexi sat back on her heels. "Then I document today's injury. We file a report. My agency can get you out quietly.
Safely.
And your mom too if she chooses. But it all starts with you. You'll have support. I'll stay with you through every step." My throat tightened. "And if I say no?" She gave me a sad smile. "Then nothing happens for now. I won't force you. I'll keep everything I know on file. I'll still be here. But your dad? He'll keep being who he is. And next time, there might not be a Lexi to catch you when you fall." That was the moment it really hit me. No one else was coming. Not Mom. Not Jonah. The only person who had stopped long enough to see me was the one person I never expected. I closed my eyes, breathed in. The air burned my ribs, but it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's do it." Lexi reached out and gently took my hand.
"Good," she said.
"Then we start now." After I said yes, everything went quiet again. Not in the room. Lexi was on the phone with someone, giving them quiet but firm details. Not in the house. Dad's heavy footsteps still echoed somewhere upstairs, and Mom hadn't moved from her chair in the hallway. But inside me, silence. A strange, hollow silence. It's funny how quickly your life can shift. 1 second, you're on the floor, trying to breathe. The next, you're remembering things you buried so deep you almost convinced yourself they weren't real. I don't remember the first time Dad hurt me. Not clearly. But I remember the first time it felt deliberate. I was maybe 7. I dropped a glass of water, trying to carry it to Mom. It shattered on the kitchen floor. I remember apologizing over and over, crying as I tried to pick up the pieces with a towel. He grabbed my wrist so hard I dropped everything again. I thought he was going to yell, but he didn't. He just bent close to my ear and said, "Don't you ever make me look stupid like that again." That was it. That was the lesson. It wasn't about mistakes. It was about image. Control. As I got older, he got louder. Smarter. He knew how to hurt without leaving marks. How to twist words into weapons so sharp you didn't realize you were bleeding until you were alone in the dark, hating yourself for crying. He'd say things like, "You're just like your mother, useless." Or, "No one's going to want someone like you." And the worst part? I believed him. Mom never said anything. She'd flinch. Freeze. Sometimes she'd whisper, "Enough, please," but it never carried weight. It never stopped him. And Jonah, he used to be my safe person. My big brother who taught me to ride a bike and snuck me cookies when Dad said I didn't deserve dessert. But something changed when he turned 16. He started pulling away. Stopped looking me in the eye when Dad yelled. Stopped checking on me after. I think it was survival. The less you feel, the less it hurts. The less you see, the less you're responsible for.
But I saw everything.
I felt everything. There was a teacher once, Mrs. Holloway, 9th grade English. She pulled me aside after class and asked if I was okay. Said I seemed tired, like I was carrying something. I almost told her. I even opened my mouth. But then I thought about what would happen if I did. Dad's rage. Mom's tears. Jonah's silence. The whole house crumbling around me, and I'd be blamed for lighting the match. So I just smiled and said I was fine. I wasn't fine. I wasn't weak either. I was terrified. Because when you grow up in a house like that, love becomes confusing. Safety becomes a dream, not a right. And your own voice. It becomes something you don't trust anymore. Until someone hands it back to you. That's what Lexi did. Not by rescuing me. Not by taking over. But by reminding me that silence isn't strength. Enduring isn't the same as healing. And being afraid doesn't mean I was wrong. I wasn't weak. I was a child. And now I'm not. The day after the incident, Lexi came back. She didn't push. Didn't ask how I felt. Just brought 2 cups of tea and sat across from me on the floor of my room, where I felt safest. Then, after a long silence, she opened her bag and pulled out a small black pouch. "This is for you," she said. "But only if you're ready to use it." Inside was a slim audio recorder. Simple, discreet. A single button. "They don't have to know you're gathering anything," she continued. "The law in our state allows one-party consent. That means if you're part of the conversation, it's legal to record it, even without his knowledge." My hand trembled slightly as I picked it up. It was light. Too light. I expected it to feel heavier, like all the fear and history it represented. But it felt like a key. Lexi showed me how to place it in my hoodie pocket, how to press record without looking down, how to keep my voice even if I needed to bait a conversation. She even helped me write a journal. Not the kind I used to keep as a kid, with bad poetry and doodles. This one was precise. Factual.
Date. Time.
What happened. What was said. Bruises. Locations. Patterns. Every night I added to it just a few lines. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just truth. And every entry made me feel like I was building something. A case.
A path.
A future. Lexi also taught me how to document visual evidence. "If you ever have a mark again," she said, "use natural light. Don't wait more than 12 hours. Speak in the video. Say the date, what happened, and where it happened." At first, I hated hearing my own voice. It sounded small. Shaky. But by the 3rd day, I noticed something different. My voice wasn't getting louder. It was getting steadier. Lexi walked me through what would happen if we went forward. Police protocol. Advocates. The difference between temporary and permanent orders. Where I could go. Who I could call. What to say if I ever felt unsafe again. "You don't have to memorize everything," she said. "You just need to remember this. You are never powerless. You've lived in his world for so long, you forgot that yours still exists. I'm just helping you find the door." That night, I sat on my bed, holding my journal in one hand and the recorder in the other. I thought about every time I told myself I was imagining it, that I was overreacting, that I had no proof, no chance, no future.
But now?
I had pages,
Dates.
voices,
Pictures.
and someone who believed me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing. And that changed everything. Mom's birthday dinner was always the same. A too big roast, too loud laughter, and a silence beneath it all so thick you could choke on it. This year wasn't any different, except for everything that was about to happen. We sat around the table. Dad at the head, carving knife in hand like a symbol. Mom beside him, smiling too much. Jonah across from me, quiet. And Lexi, next to him, eyes scanning everything. My fingers were ice around my water glass. The recorder was in my coat pocket, back in my room. But I didn't need it now. I'd already chosen the moment. This moment. Before we eat, Dad said, standing, glass in hand, I just want to say how proud I am of this family. We've had our ups and downs, sure, but look at us now. He smiled.
Broad.
Artificial. His voice filled the room like smoke. And to you, Mary, he nodded at Mom, for holding us together, even when some people didn't make it easy. That last line landed on me like a slap. His gaze never met mine, but the message was clear. Everyone chuckled nervously. I didn't. I stood. Slowly. My chair scraped against the floor, louder than it should have been. Dad paused mid-toast. Sit down, he said, his smile faltering. But I didn't. My voice trembled. My knees too. But the words were ready.
No.
That one word sucked the air out of the room. I'm done sitting down. I'm done pretending this house is anything but what it really is. Dad's smile vanished. What are you talking about? My hand reached into my sweater pocket. I pulled out a folded photo, one Lexi helped me print. I walked over to him and placed it on the table. It showed me, standing in the hallway mirror 2 nights ago. A fresh bruise bloomed down the side of my arm, angry and red. The timestamp glowed in the corner. Lexi's handwriting labeled the moment. I turned to him, steady now. Dad, this was taken the night you slammed the door into me. His jaw clenched. You're exaggerating. That never. And you, I said, turning to Mom, you watched. The words dropped like stones. No one spoke. No one moved. Mom's eyes welled instantly. Her lips parted, but no words came. Jonah shifted, his eyes flicking from the photo to me, then to Lexi. Something flickered behind his silence. Shame, maybe.
Guilt.
Lexi stood too.
Calm.
Quiet power radiating from her. I've already filed a report, she said. With the local agency. With evidence. Dad's face flushed red. You brought this girl into our house to spy on us? No, I said. I brought her here, so I'd finally stop lying for you. Another pause. Silence thickened. You could hear the old wall clock ticking, the radiator hissing, the weight of every unspoken year pressing into the room. And then Mom pushed her plate back.
Slowly.
Her eyes still on the photo. I need to lie down, she murmured. Then she stood, walked out of the room, and didn't look back. That silence? It wasn't hollow anymore. It was the sound of something cracking open. And I knew nothing would ever go back to the way it was. I stayed standing as Mom left the room. The silence held for what felt like years. But it wasn't quiet. It buzzed with adrenaline, with the weight of things that could no longer be unsaid. Jonah was the first to move. He picked up the photo, stared at it like he couldn't believe what he was seeing, even though part of him had always known. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, voice barely audible. I looked at him. Really looked. I did. You just weren't listening. That hit him like a slap. He sank back in his chair, running a hand over his mouth. His eyes were red, but for once, they stayed open. And then Dad stood up.
Fast.
This is garbage, he snapped, voice hard and hot. This girl, this outsider, she manipulated you. Fed you lies. You don't know what you're saying. His hand slammed the table. The glass shook. Lexi stepped between us, without hesitation. Calm, composed, steady. "You need to sit down," she said, "because in about 1 minute, the police will be at the door. I called them before dinner. With your daughter's permission." Dad blinked. "You did what?" I watched his face change, confusion to disbelief to fury. He opened his mouth, probably to shout, deny, accuse. But before he could speak, we all heard it. The doorbell.
Once. Twice.
He froze. The color drained from his face. Lexi walked past him and opened the door. 2 officers stood there.
Calm.
Collected. "We received a report from a mandated reporter," one of them said, already pulling on gloves. "Are you Mr. Keller?" Dad glanced at us, his eyes wide now, cornered. I saw something flicker across his face, not fear, but disbelief that he was actually being held accountable. "You can't be serious," he growled. "This is my house. And we're here to investigate a domestic violence claim," the officer said flatly. "Please step aside." They didn't touch him at first. Just talked. Asked him to come with them. Dad barked and cursed, but ultimately he followed. He didn't want handcuffs in front of Jonah. Pride still mattered to him. As the door shut behind them, the house fell into a strange, echoing quiet. And then Mom came back. Her face was blotchy. Makeup smeared. She looked older. She walked straight to me and sat down. Didn't touch me. Didn't cry. Just looked at me like she was trying to see me clearly for the first time in years. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't know why I didn't stop it. I saw it, and I still—" She trailed off. Her voice cracked. "You were afraid," I said. "Just like I was." She nodded. Slowly. "But I'm not going to be anymore. I won't be silent again." Jonah joined us. Sat beside Mom. His hand found mine. Small. Tentative. But real. And for the first time in a long time, I believed him when he said, "Neither will I." Lexi looked at me. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. This wasn't the end. But it was the first time I felt like I was standing in a house where the truth had a place. Dad didn't come back. The restraining order was granted within days. And just like that, the man who had controlled the entire temperature of our home, whether it was safe to speak, to breathe, to exist, was gone. And yet, the silence he left behind wasn't peaceful at first. It was loud. It echoed. I thought I'd feel free right away. But the truth is, freedom felt unfamiliar. Lexi helped me fill out the intake forms for trauma counseling. She drove me to the first session. Waited outside with a latte and a crossword puzzle. When I came back out, she didn't ask me what I talked about. She just looked at me and said, "Proud of you, boss." And I smiled. For real this time. The sessions were hard. I'd sit in that quiet room and unpack years of things I'd buried, so deep I'd started to believe they never happened. The therapist told me something that stuck. It wasn't your fault. It was survival. And for the first time, I started to believe that too. Jonah started coming around more often. At first, it was awkward. We were siblings, sure, but the years of distance stood between us like fog. Then one afternoon, he knocked on my door. No Lexi. No excuses. Just him. He sat on the floor across from my bed, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "I should have protected you. I should have done something years ago. And I'm sorry. I was scared of him. But that's not an excuse anymore." He cried. So did I. That was the first of many steps. Small, clumsy, real. Mom enrolled in therapy too. Separately. She didn't want to rush forgiveness, and neither did I. But I saw her trying. For the first time, I saw her choosing me, not him. And Lexi? She stayed. Not just for Jonah, but for me. She moved into her own place eventually, but she came over on weekends. We made dinner together, watched terrible reality TV, and laughed. She didn't just see me. She helped me see myself. Not as the quiet one. Not as the invisible one. But as someone who survived hell and kept walking. And every time she called me boss, I started to believe I actually was. Sometimes, I still hear his voice in my head. Not yelling.
Not scolding.
Just the echo of how small he used to make me feel. But it fades faster now. Because now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the quiet girl who flinched at shadows. I see someone with a voice. Someone who used it. Someone who's still learning, still healing, but no longer hiding. A year after that birthday dinner, I started volunteering with a local advocacy group for abuse survivors. The same kind of group that sent Lexi into our lives. I sat in rooms with other women, some older, some younger, and I listened. Just listened. Because I knew how much that meant. Then I enrolled in night classes. Psychology first, maybe law later. I haven't decided yet. But I know I want to help people who feel like I once did. Alone.
Silent.
Afraid. Because they're not. And if I can be someone's Lexi, even for 5 minutes, I will be. Jonah still calls every weekend. We're not the same siblings we were as kids, but we're rebuilding something new. Something honest. Mom's learning too.
Slowly. She still gets quiet sometimes.
Still freezes. But she doesn't excuse him anymore. That silence? It's not fear now. It's thought. And Lexi?
She's still in my life.
Not as my brother's girlfriend anymore, but as my friend. My anchor. My mentor. She still calls me boss. Only now I know why. She didn't call me that because I was strong back then. She called me boss because she saw the woman I could become. And now, I see her too. I became her. Not perfect, but powerful. And if you're listening to this, wondering if your voice matters, if it will ever be heard, let me tell you something. It does. It will. You just haven't realized you're the boss yet. I never imagined healing would start with a whisper. But it did. Not with some grand rescue or dramatic escape, but with a soft voice, kneeling beside me when I was at my lowest. Hey, boss. 2 words that told me someone saw me, not as broken, not as weak, but as someone worth believing in, worth standing beside. And somehow, those 2 words were louder than every scream I had ever held in. That whisper cracked the silence I had been living in for years. And through that crack, light finally came in. There are still hard days.
Healing isn't a straight line.
But I'm not afraid of silence anymore. Because now I know my voice fills it. And I use that voice for the girl I was, for the woman I'm becoming, and for every single person still waiting to be heard.
Beat.
If you've made it this far, let me ask you something. What would you have done if someone you loved hurt you, and no one else saw? Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have waited for the moment someone finally whispered, "Hey, boss"?